At the age of 28, seated in her small studio apartment, Madison pondered how she had become a peripheral figure within her own family. From childhood, regardless of her efforts or achievements, her younger sister, Sienna, consistently occupied the role of the favored child, seemingly incapable of misstep. For 3 years, Madison had secretly channeled $5,000 each month to support her struggling parents, a commitment that demanded significant personal sacrifice. Yet, the breaking point arrived when her father, during a family gathering, publicly diminished her, attributing her considerable generosity to Sienna. That moment precipitated a decision that reshaped everything. Before delving into how she finally asserted herself, consider sharing your location in the comments. If this narrative resonates with you, please indicate your support and subscribe for additional accounts of surprising real-life family dynamics. The pattern of unequal treatment originated early in their Columbus, Ohio home. Her father, Robert, labored long hours in construction, often returning home with calloused hands and a weary back. Her mother, Linda, balanced a part-time teaching position at the local elementary school with constant worries about their financial stability. Despite these pressures, they seemed to possess boundless patience and resources for Sienna, her sister, who was 3 years younger. Sienna embodied everything Madison perceived she was not, possessing naturally blonde hair that shone in the sun, luminous blue eyes that sparkled with laughter, and a personality that effortlessly attracted others. Educators admired her, neighbors doted on her, and her parents guarded her as if she were fragile, requiring perpetual protection and acclaim. Madison, conversely, occupied the practical sphere. While Sienna engaged with dolls and envisioned a future as a renowned artist, Madison assisted her mother with household tasks, ensured the dishwasher was properly loaded, and managed family schedules. When Sienna forgot assignments, Madison reminded her. When a favorite dress was misplaced, Madison helped locate it. She naturally assumed the mantle of the responsible older sister, managing affairs unseen. The widening gap in their treatment became increasingly apparent with age. Each August, their mother would take them school shopping. Sienna would acquire 3 new outfits, new footwear, a fresh backpack, and all the art supplies her creative spirit desired. Madison received a single new shirt and was expected to wear Sienna's hand-me-downs from the preceding year, garments often ill-fitting or incompatible with her style. When Sienna expressed interest in dance, their parents promptly enrolled her in the town's most expensive studio. They purchased multiple leotards, tights, ballet shoes, and jazz shoes. They attended every recital, capturing numerous photographs and extolling her inherent grace and talent to relatives. When Madison inquired about joining the academic decathlon team, an activity requiring only a $25 registration fee, she was informed they couldn't afford additional activities at that time. The incident involving piano lessons served as perhaps the most telling illustration of this disparity. Both Sienna and Madison independently requested piano lessons within the same week, having saved their allowance money and presented their requests with enthusiasm. Their parents convened a discussion, which Madison anticipated would be a fair deliberation about sharing or finding a solution for both to learn. Instead, they explained that piano lessons were costly and could only be afforded for one. Then, her father addressed Sienna directly, stating she possessed a natural musical gift, evident when she sang. Madison, he suggested, was more practically inclined, making lessons a better fit for Sienna. Madison's heart sank, but she managed to smile and congratulated her sister. This pattern defined much of her childhood, suppressing disappointment, acting magnanimous, and hoping her sacrifices might someday be acknowledged and appreciated. During high school, the favoritism intensified. Sienna excelled in the drama club, became homecoming princess, and moved through social circles with captivating ease. Their parents attended every performance, sometimes traveling 2 hours for competitions. Meanwhile, Madison quietly achieved academic excellence, maintaining a 4.2 GPA and working part-time at a grocery store to fund her college aspirations. When she was inducted into the National Honor Society, her parents missed the ceremony due to a conflict with one of Sienna's dress rehearsals. When she won a $500 academic scholarship, the celebratory dinner was postponed because Sienna had a date and needed the car that evening. Madison rationalized this treatment, telling herself Sienna required more attention and guidance, and that her own independence was a valuable gift fostering strength and self-reliance. Yet deep within, a persistent ache lingered, a yearning to understand what it would take to earn the same depth of love and pride that effortlessly flowed toward her sister. College applications starkly revealed the extent of the differential treatment. Madison applied to state universities, extensively researched scholarship opportunities, and prepared to incur student loans to finance her education. She invested countless hours drafting essays, studying for standardized tests, and working extra shifts to save money. Sienna, however, aspired to a prestigious private art college with an annual tuition nearing $50,000. Upon her acceptance, their parents expressed unbridled joy and immediately arranged to cover the full cost of tuition, room, and board. There was no mention of loans or financial responsibility. It was implicitly understood that Sienna's aspirations warranted any sacrifice. When Madison presented her own college plans, she was met with assurances of pride in her independence and confidence that she would manage. The message was unambiguous. Sienna's education was a family investment, while Madison's was her sole responsibility. Despite the profound hurt, Madison harbored hope that their dynamics would evolve in adulthood, believing her diligence and dedication would eventually be recognized. She envisioned her parents acknowledging her worth once she proved herself in the professional world, treating her with the same respect and admiration they lavished on Sienna. This hope sustained her through years of feeling like a supporting character in her own family's narrative. After graduating with a marketing degree and significant student loan debt, she channeled her characteristic determination into building a career. She secured an entry-level position at a marketing firm in downtown Columbus, quickly establishing a reputation for reliability, creativity, and an unmatched work ethic. Her initial dwelling was a meager studio apartment on the east side, spanning barely 400 square feet, featuring a wall-mounted Murphy bed and a minuscule kitchenette where she could touch opposing walls simultaneously. The monthly rent was $650, precisely what remained after loan payments, groceries, and basic utilities. She furnished the space with items sourced from thrift stores and garage sales, gradually acquiring mismatched dishes, a used sofa with a minor tear, and a coffee table assembled from a kit. Each purchase demanded careful consideration and weeks of budgeting. She honed skills in preparing simple meals, clipping coupons, and seeking out free local entertainment. Meanwhile, Sienna, having completed her studies at the expensive art college with a fine arts degree, returned immediately to her childhood bedroom. She articulated plans to pursue her passion for painting and sculpture while navigating her future direction. Her parents fully endorsed this approach, encouraging her to take ample time for artistic self-discovery. Their monthly family dinners evolved into exhibitions of Sienna's creative journey. She would showcase her latest artwork, and the evenings would be consumed by discussions of color theory, artistic inspiration, and the challenges faced by sensitive artists in a commercial world. They adorned their home with her pieces, proudly displaying them to guests and praising her innate talent. When conversation occasionally drifted to Madison's work, the topic seldom endured beyond a few minutes. Marketing was perceived as practical but lacked interest or impressiveness. Her promotions and achievements were acknowledged with brief congratulations before the focus invariably returned to Sienna's artistic pursuits. During her second year at the firm, Madison received a promotion to senior analyst, accompanied by a substantial salary increase. Eager to share the news at the next family dinner, she hoped this achievement would finally garner the recognition she longed for. She prepared anecdotes about successful campaigns and positive client feedback. When she announced her promotion, her mother offered a brief smile, commenting on Madison's aptitude for practical matters, before immediately turning to Sienna to inquire about her latest art project. The conversation shifted seamlessly, leaving Madison's accomplishment uncommented upon. Driving back to her small apartment that evening, Madison felt a familiar blend of disappointment and resignation. She had learned not to anticipate effusive celebration of her successes, yet each time her achievements were treated as routine while Sienna's were deemed extraordinary, the sting remained. Around this time, Madison began to perceive signs of financial strain in her parents' lives. Her father's construction work grew more irregular as he aged and his back problems worsened. Her mother's part-time teaching income proved insufficient to cover the mortgage, utilities, and daily expenses, particularly with Sienna living at home without contributing financially. During one challenging month, Madison overheard her father speaking with the electric company, requesting a payment extension. Her mother clipped coupons more diligently than usual and started purchasing generic products. The lines of worry deepened around their eyes, though they attempted to conceal their stress from both daughters. Without disclosing her actions, Madison initiated a monthly transfer of $200 to assist with their expenses. She established an automatic transfer from her checking account, timed to arrive mid-month when bills were typically due. She convinced herself it was temporary aid until her father's work stabilized. In the initial months, her parents called to express gratitude, though they seemed puzzled by the source of the funds. Madison had deliberately made the transfers anonymous, intending to avoid making a fuss about her assistance. When they questioned her about the mysterious deposits, she suggested Sienna might have arranged it as a surprise. To her astonishment, they immediately accepted this explanation and began extolling Sienna for her thoughtfulness and generosity. They spoke of her increasing maturity and caring nature, expressing pride that she was considering their needs even while pursuing her artistic dreams. Madison experienced a complex mix of satisfaction and sadness, listening to them credit Sienna for her secret support. Part of her was content that they were receiving help and feeling supported by what they believed was their younger daughter's love. Another part felt invisible once more, making a significant contribution to their well-being, while remaining entirely unacknowledged. During this period, Madison began dating James, a software engineer she encountered at a coffee shop. He was kind, intelligent, and genuinely engaged with her thoughts and opinions. For the first time, she felt truly valued for her perspective and contributions. James quickly discerned the family dynamics. After attending a few dinners, he gently inquired why her parents seemed more attentive to Sienna than to her. Having observed how conversations flowed effortlessly when Sienna spoke but seemed to falter when Madison attempted to contribute, Madison found herself offering excuses, explaining that Sienna was more outgoing and entertaining, and that her parents were proud of her in their own way. James listened attentively, but his eyes conveyed concern. He began highlighting instances where her contributions were overlooked or dismissed, helping her recognize patterns she had habitually ignored. The nadir of this period occurred on her 25th birthday. She had mentioned the date multiple times beforehand, hoping this year might be different. She had even taken the day off work, anticipating a potential family celebration. The morning passed without calls or messages. By afternoon, she struggled against feelings of hurt, telling herself everyone was simply busy. Then, around 4 o'clock, Sienna called excitedly to describe the surprise party their parents were planning for her own upcoming 22nd birthday. Sienna detailed the decorations, the cake order, and the guest list for 20 minutes, so engrossed in her plans that she failed to realize she was calling Madison on her actual birthday to discuss her own impending celebration. When Madison gently mentioned it was her birthday, a brief silence ensued before Sienna's hurried apology and explanation that party planning had been distracting. She offered no invitation to her own celebration, nor suggested her parents might wish to acknowledge Madison's birthday. The oversight felt complete and devastating. That evening, James took Madison to a quiet dinner and listened as she finally articulated the profound sense of invisibility she experienced within her family. Despite this pain, Madison continued providing financial support to her parents, gradually increasing the amount as her salary rose and their perceived needs expanded. She had convinced herself that her financial contributions were more valuable than recognition, that practical assistance held greater importance than emotional validation. The turning point arrived during the winter of her 26th year, when her father suffered a serious injury on a construction site. A fall while carrying heavy materials resulted in a severe back injury requiring surgery, months of physical therapy, and extended time off work, only partially compensated by workers' insurance. Medical bills immediately began accumulating, and Madison witnessed the panic in her parents' faces during family dinners. They attempted to mask their financial distress, but the indicators were undeniable. Her mother took on additional tutoring students, working evenings and weekends for extra income. Her father grew increasingly frustrated by his physical limitations and constantly worried about their escalating debt. Sienna, meanwhile, remained seemingly unaware of the gravity of their situation. She continued living at home rent-free, purchasing art supplies with money borrowed from her mother, and discussing her creative projects as though financial concerns were non-existent. When her father winced with pain, She offered a quick hug before resuming conversation about her latest painting. Without hesitation, Madison increased her monthly contributions to $1,000. This necessitated significant personal sacrifices, but witnessing her parents' struggles felt more acute than any personal discomfort. She switched exclusively to generic groceries, canceled her gym membership, and curtailed social outings to conserve funds. The response to this augmented support was swift and gratifying for her parents. Their stress visibly lessened, and they began praising Sienna's extraordinary generosity and maturity. They boasted to relatives about how their artistic daughter was somehow managing to support the family while pursuing her dreams. Her mother would remark to anyone listening that they had always known Sienna possessed a good heart, but seeing her sacrifice for them during this difficult time demonstrated what an amazing young woman she had become. Her father would nod proudly, adding that Sienna never made them feel indebted, simply and quietly providing support without expectation of return. They felt they had raised her well. Hearing these conversations evoked a complex emotional response in Madison. She genuinely felt happiness that her parents felt supported and loved during their crisis, and pride in her ability to provide meaningful assistance. Yet, increasing frustration simmered because her actual sacrifices were being attributed entirely to someone else. As her father's recovery progressed slowly, their expenses continued to mount. Physical therapy, medications, and ongoing medical appointments created a relentless stream of bills. Her mother's tutoring income helped, but it was insufficient to cover both regular expenses and mounting medical costs. Again, Madison increased her contributions, this time to $3,000 per month. This decision demanded even more dramatic lifestyle alterations. She relocated to an even smaller apartment in a less desirable area, reducing rent by $200. She sold her car and relied solely on public transportation, saving on insurance, gas, and parking. Her social life became virtually non-existent as she eliminated all discretionary spending. She ceased buying coffee on her commute, packed lunch daily, and sought out free entertainment options. She shopped exclusively at discount retailers and purchased clothing only when absolutely necessary. The physical and emotional toll of maintaining this level of financial support while living so minimally began to manifest. She was perpetually tired from long work hours and weekend freelance jobs taken to boost income. She lost weight due to reduced food intake and less expensive options. James noticed these changes, expressing growing concern for her well-being. He remarked on her exhaustion, her reluctance to engage in paid activities, and her visible weight loss. Madison attempted to explain she was experiencing a temporary financial constraint that would soon resolve. She found herself unable to reveal the extent of the money she was sending her family, partly due to embarrassment regarding the family dynamics and partly fearing he would dissuade her from helping them. Meanwhile, Sienna's lifestyle showed no signs of the financial pressures dominating Madison's existence. She continued weekly manicures, purchased expensive organic groceries, and frequently dined out with friends. She had started a new relationship and consistently wore stylish attire, likely exceeding Madison's monthly grocery budget. At family dinners, discussions continued to center on Sienna's artistic development and her generous family support. Her parents would express how blessed they felt to have such a caring daughter, who intuitively understood their needs without being prompted. They praised her emotional intelligence and her ability to balance personal dreams with family responsibility. Her mother would say that Sienna possessed an intuitive grasp of their needs, never requiring them to ask for help, simply and quietly managing everything. Her father would smile and pat Sienna's hand, expressing wonder at their fortune in having such a caring daughter. These conversations became increasingly difficult for Madison to endure. She would sit at the table, eating a meal likely funded by her money, listening as her parents lauded her sister for her own sacrifices. Sienna would respond with modest smiles and change the subject, never correcting the assumption, but never acknowledging the truth either. As her contributions escalated to $5,000 per month, Madison reached her limit regarding personal sustainability. She worked 60-hour weeks at her primary job, augmented by weekend freelancing. She had moved into a studio apartment even smaller than her first, featuring a shared hallway bathroom and no air conditioning. Her diet consisted largely of rice, beans, and discounted vegetables. She hadn't bought new clothes in over a year and wore shoes with worn soles she couldn't afford to replace. Her social isolation was complete, unable to participate in any activities requiring payment. James's worry for her health and welfare grew. He offered financial assistance, but Madison's pride prevented her from accepting help while secretly supporting her family to such a degree. Their relationship suffered due to her constant exhaustion, stress, and inability to enjoy normal couple activities involving spending. The irony of the situation was not lost on her. She was sacrificing her health, happiness, and relationship to provide her family with financial stability, while her sister received all the credit and gratitude for her efforts. Madison was becoming invisible within her own life, existing solely to support others while her personal needs and aspirations were utterly disregarded. Yet, despite burgeoning resentment and exhaustion, she maintained the payments month after month. She clung to the belief that this sacrifice was temporary, that her father would eventually recover fully and return to work, and that her parents would somehow uncover the truth about who had been helping them. She held on to the hope that her hidden generosity would eventually be revealed and appreciated, validating all the suffering. The pivotal moment occurred on a warm Saturday afternoon in June during Sienna's 25th birthday celebration. Her parents decided to host a large backyard barbecue, inviting extended family Madison seldom saw outside of major holidays. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends filled their childhood backyard, gathering to commemorate the golden child's quarter-century milestone. Madison had anticipated this party with dread, acutely aware that her financial state would preclude an impressive gift. After covering her monthly rent, utilities, and sending the customary $5,000 to her parents, she had precisely $60 remaining in her checking account until her next paycheck. She considered skipping the party entirely, but knew it would create additional family friction and disappointment. After much deliberation, she decided on a simple picture frame, found at a discount store for $12, along with the remaining $48 in cash. She included a heartfelt note expressing her desire for Sienna to have a means to display her artwork and some money for supplies. It was a modest gesture, but it represented her entire available funds. The party was in full swing upon her arrival, with cousins playing volleyball, aunts socializing, and the aroma of her father's renowned barbecue ribs filling the air. Sienna looked radiant in a new sundress, her hair perfectly styled, surrounded by admirers complimenting her latest paintings displayed around the patio. As usual, Madison felt like an outsider at her own family gathering. Conversation seemed to flow around her rather than include her. When relatives inquired about her life, their attention would drift before she finished responding. She found herself assisting her mother in the kitchen, arranging food, and clearing dishes while others enjoyed the festivities. The gift opening was scheduled for late afternoon. Her mother had prepared a special table adorned with art-themed wrapping paper and paintbrush ribbons. Sienna's pile of presents was considerable, featuring large boxes and elegant bags suggesting expensive contents. Her father announced it was time for the birthday girl to open her gifts, and everyone gathered in a circle. Sienna began opening presents to enthusiastic reactions from the crowd. She received professional art supplies, fine jewelry, gift certificates to upscale stores, and various luxury items reflecting her status as the family favorite. Madison's humble gift was near the bottom of the pile, wrapped in plain paper saved from Christmas. As Sienna selected it, Madison felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment at its diminutive, inexpensive appearance compared to the other gifts. Sienna opened it gracefully, smiled, and genuinely thanked her for the thoughtful frame and the cash. However, her father picked up the card and read the monetary amount Madison had included. His expression instantly shifted from pleasantness to disappointment, and his voice, carrying across the entire yard, exclaimed, "You only sent 60 cents. The way he uttered the amount made it sound like loose change discovered in couch cushions. The entire party fell silent. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward Madison, expressions ranging from embarrassment to pity. Her face burned with shame as her father continued his commentary, audible to everyone. "Sienna sends $5,000 a month," he declared, as though Madison's modest gift were a personal affront. "Your sister has been supporting this whole family, while you can't even manage a decent birthday present." The humiliation was absolute and devastating. She saw relatives exchange glances, some sympathetic, others clearly judging her perceived selfishness and lack of family loyalty. An uncle cleared his throat awkwardly. A cousin whispered to her husband. In that moment, standing before her entire extended family, while being publicly shamed for her apparent lack of generosity, Madison reached her breaking point. 3 years of covert sacrifice, 3 years of living in austerity to support her family, 3 years of witnessing Sienna receive credit for her efforts. And this was the culmination. "That was me," she said quietly, her voice barely penetrating the uncomfortable murmur of the crowd. "I've been sending the money." Her father looked confused, slightly irritated by the interruption to his praise of Sienna. "What are you talking about?" "The $5,000 every month," she repeated, her voice gaining strength. "That was me sending it. I've been supporting the family for 3 years." The backyard fell into complete silence, save for the distant sound of a radio. Her mother stepped forward, her expression a mixture of disbelief and anger Madison had never witnessed before. "Stop stealing her credit," she snapped, her voice sharp and cutting. "Don't lie to make yourself look better. We know exactly where that money comes from, and it's not from you." The accusation struck Madison like a physical blow. Not only were her parents refusing to accept the truth of her sacrifices, but they were accusing her of lying about it in front of their entire extended family. Relatives looked back and forth, clearly uncomfortable with the unfolding family drama. Sienna stood frozen beside her pile of gifts, offering no defense or correction. She had known for months that she wasn't sending money, yet she allowed Madison to be humiliated rather than speaking the truth. "I can show you the bank records," Madison said desperately, reaching for her phone. "I can prove it was me." "We don't need to see fake bank records," her father dismissed. "We know our daughters, and we know which one of you has been taking care of this family." The final blow landed as Madison surveyed the faces of her relatives. Instead of support or understanding, she saw pity, embarrassment, and judgment. They completely believed her parents' account. In their eyes, she was the selfish daughter, so consumed by jealousy of her generous sister that she would fabricating financial contributions in front of the entire family. The uncle cleared his throat again, suggesting they return to celebrating Sienna's birthday. Others began finding excuses to check on children or refill drinks. The party atmosphere was shattered, with the blame clearly placed on Madison. She stood there for another moment, surrounded by family members who believed they knew her, but had never truly seen her. The weight of 3 years of sacrifice, invisibility, and misunderstanding crashed down. She realized no amount of financial support, no degree of self-denial, no sacrifice she could make would ever earn her the recognition and respect that came so naturally to Sienna. Without uttering another word, she walked to her car and drove away. Behind her, she could faintly hear her father's voice resuming the celebration, perhaps making light of the dramatic interruption, returning to the important business of honoring Sienna's special day. That night, alone in her small apartment, eating rice and canned vegetables, Madison made the decision that would change everything. She accessed her bank account online and canceled the automatic transfer, sending $5,000 monthly to her parents. If they genuinely believed Sienna was their benefactor, they were about to discover the real consequences of losing that support. For the first time in 3 years, she retained her entire paycheck. The relief was immediate and profound. She was free from calculating grocery expenses, from choosing between paying her electric bill and sending money home. For the first time since her father's injury, her own financial needs could take precedence. The decision felt simultaneously empowering and terrifying. She was finally asserting herself, demanding recognition, but also risking the complete rupture of her family relationships. As she drifted to sleep, she questioned if she had made the biggest mistake of her life, or finally taken the first step toward reclaiming her inherent worth. The immediate aftermath was surprisingly quiet. For the initial 2 weeks after stopping the payments, she received no communication from her family. She assumed they remained upset about what they perceived as her attention-seeking behavior at Sienna's party, and were giving her space. Meanwhile, Madison experienced a level of financial liberation unknown for 3 years. With an additional $5,000 in her account, she could afford fresh produce, replacing her reliance solely on rice and beans. She acquired new shoes and essential clothing items, replacing garments that had become noticeably worn. She even treated herself and James to dinner at a modest restaurant, delighting him by simply enjoying a normal meal. The family's silence abruptly ended on a Tuesday evening with repeated calls. Her mother called first, followed immediately by her father, then Sienna, then her mother again. Madison let them all go to voicemail, unready for the anticipated emotional and potentially explosive conversation. Listening to the messages revealed unmistakable panic. Her mother's first message was brief and confused, asking Madison to call back about something important. Her father's was more direct, urging her to call her mother, stating something was wrong with the bank account. By Sienna's message, the situation was clear. Her voice trembling, she explained their parents had called her in distress because the monthly financial assistance hadn't arrived. Sienna had been compelled to admit she had never sent any money and had no idea where the support originated. The following morning, her father called Madison directly. His voice conveyed a mixture of confusion, embarrassment, and dawning realization as he asked the question she had awaited for 3 years. "Madison, we need to talk. The bank says the monthly transfers were from your account number. Sienna says she never sent us any money. Can you explain what's going on?" For a moment, Madison considered prolonging the reveal, making him exert effort for the truth after years of being dismissed. A part of her yearned for him to plead for information, but she was too weary from carrying the secret to delay the revelation further. "I've been sending you $5,000 every month for 3 years," she stated simply. "Since right after Dad's accident." A minute of silence stretched on the other end of the line. When her father finally spoke, his voice was small and uncertain in a way she had never heard. "But you never told us it was you. We thought," Sienna said. "Sienna never said anything," Madison interrupted. "You assumed it was her, and I allowed you to believe it, thinking it might eventually be a pleasant surprise. I never imagined you would refuse to believe me when I finally told you the truth." The ensuing conversation was painful and strained. Her father attempted to apologize for his reaction at the party but seemed bewildered by her decision to keep the payments secret for so long. He repeatedly questioned why she hadn't simply informed them from the beginning, seemingly overlooking the years of favoritism that had made it clear her contributions would be valued differently. When she explained she had stopped the payments due to her treatment at the party, his tone shifted from apologetic to defensive. He accused her of being manipulative, of using money to control the family. He suggested stopping the payments was an overreaction, that she was punishing them for a simple misunderstanding. "We can't afford to lose that support right now," he stated baldly. "Your mother has taken on extra tutoring, and I'm not back to full-time construction. We need you to restart those payments immediately." The sense of entitlement in his voice was staggering. Even after discovering she had secretly supported them for 3 years while living in near poverty, his primary concern was ensuring the continued flow of money. There was no acknowledgement of her sacrifice, no appreciation for what she had relinquished, no recognition of their error in crediting Sienna. "I'm not restarting the payments unless things change," Madison stated firmly. "I require public acknowledgement of what I've done, equitable treatment going forward, and Sienna needs to begin contributing to the household instead of living as a dependent adult." Her father's response was immediate and angry. "You can't blackmail your family with money. If you truly cared about us, you wouldn't use our financial struggles as leverage for attention." The accusation stung, but it also provided clarity. Her family viewed her financial support as an obligation rather than a gift. They perceived her desire for recognition not as a reasonable request for acknowledgement, but as attention-seeking behavior that diminished the value of her contributions. In the following weeks, the pressure campaign intensified. Her mother called in tears, expressing fear of losing their home if Madison didn't resume payments. Sienna sent lengthy text messages asserting that families should support one another unconditionally without keeping score or demanding recognition. The most manipulative tactic came from extended family members present at the birthday party. Apparently, her parents had contacted them, explaining the financial crisis and requesting they persuade Madison to be more reasonable. She received calls from aunts, uncles, and even cousins she rarely spoke to, all delivering variations of the same message. Family comes first. Money shouldn't divide loved ones, and she was being selfish by withholding support. None of these relatives seemed particularly interested in hearing her perspective. When she attempted to explain the years of invisibility, sacrifice, and misattributed credit, They dismissed her concerns as minor grievances insignificant compared to her parents' immediate financial needs. The most difficult call came from her grandmother, her mother's mother, 83 years old and previously her favorite relative. She called weeping, expressing shame in Madison's treatment of her parents and an inability to comprehend her perceived heartlessness. "Your parents raised you better than this," she said through tears. "Family takes care of family no matter what. How can you watch them struggle when you possess the means to help?" Madison tried to explain the situation, but her grandmother interrupted. "I don't want to hear excuses. I want to see you behave like the good girl I raised you to be." That conversation fractured something within Madison. If even her beloved grandmother couldn't understand her need for recognition and respect, perhaps she was asking too much. Perhaps she was being selfish and petty. Perhaps family loyalty genuinely meant giving without expectation of anything in return. But then she recalled the humiliation at Sienna's party, standing before 30 relatives, accused of selfishness and jealousy. She remembered 3 years of subsisting on rice and beans so her family could maintain their lifestyle. She remembered watching Sienna receive praise for her sacrifices, while she remained invisible and unappreciated. James served as her anchor during this period, reminding her that her requests were reasonable and her boundaries healthy. He emphasized that she wasn't demanding money or gifts in exchange for her support. She was simply requesting the most basic acknowledgement for 3 years of extraordinary sacrifice. "You're not withholding money to be cruel," he reminded her during a moment of doubt. "You're asking for the minimum recognition for 3 years of incredible sacrifice. If they can't provide that, they don't deserve your continued support." As weeks passed and her family's financial situation grew more precarious, Madison held firm to her conditions. She observed from a distance as they struggled to adjust their lifestyle, locate additional income sources, and confront the reality of living without the support they had taken for granted. Witnessing their difficulties was painful, yet necessary. For the first time in her adult life, she was prioritizing her own emotional needs over their comfort. She demanded to be treated with the same respect automatically afforded to Sienna. Despite the guilt, manipulation, and family pressure, she refused to yield. 3 months after discontinuing the payments, her family's financial state had become genuinely dire. Her father's partial return to construction didn't generate enough income to cover basic expenses, much less the lifestyle supported by her secret contributions. Her mother tutored every available hour but still fell short of their monthly needs. The most significant change was in Sienna's circumstances. For the first time as an adult, she was compelled to face financial reality. An art gallery job she had considered but never seriously pursued suddenly became essential. She applied for multiple positions and eventually secured a full-time role at a local graphic design firm, earning $35,000 annually. The adjustment to waking early, dressing professionally, and reporting to a supervisor was a shock for someone who had spent 3 years without responsibility or accountability. She constantly complained about the demands of work, the creative limitations of commercial design, and the fatigue of maintaining a regular schedule. However, the most revelatory aspect of Sienna's new employment was the requirement to contribute $800 monthly to the household budget. For the first time, she comprehended the burden of supporting a family and the sacrifice required to sustain the comfortable lifestyle she had always assumed. During this period, her parents attempted several times to negotiate lesser terms for her renewed financial support. Her father called, suggesting she restart payments without public acknowledgement, arguing that helping the family was paramount, not receiving credit. Her mother proposed smaller contributions, perhaps $2,000 monthly, which would be more manageable for Madison but still significant. Each time, Madison calmly reiterated her original conditions: public acknowledgement of her 3 years of support, equitable treatment and respect moving forward, and Sienna's continued financial contribution to the household. She explained these were not punitive demands but necessary changes for healthy family dynamics. The breakthrough occurred during a particularly challenging week when her father's back pain intensified, forcing him to miss several days of work. Without Madison's financial cushion, the lost income created an immediate crisis. Their mortgage payment was due, utilities were threatened with disconnection, and they lacked any savings. That Wednesday evening, Madison received a call from her mother. Her voice differed from previous conversations, less defensive, more genuinely contrite. "Madison," she said quietly, "we need to talk. Really talk. Not just argue about money or make demands. Can you come over for dinner this Sunday?" Something in her tone indicated this conversation would be different. Madison agreed to visit but made it clear her conditions remained unchanged, regardless of their situation's desperation. Sunday dinner was initially strained, everyone unusually polite and cautious with words. Sienna looked exhausted from her new work schedule, and the stress lines around her parents' eyes were more visible than ever. The house itself showed signs of financial strain, with small repairs delayed and luxury items conspicuously absent. After dinner, her father cleared his throat and initiated the conversation Madison had waited 3 years for. "Madison, we owe you an apology," he said, looking directly at her for the first time in months. "We were wrong about the money, wrong about how we treated you at Sienna's party, and wrong about how we've treated you for most of your life." Her mother nodded, continuing, "We've always been proud of you. But we took your strength and independence for granted. We assumed you didn't require as much attention or support as Sienna, but that wasn't fair. You deserve just as much recognition and celebration." The acknowledgement felt surreal after years of feeling invisible. Madison had envisioned this moment countless times, but the reality proved more emotional than anticipated. Part of her felt vindicated and relieved, while another part felt sadness that such drastic action had been necessary to reach this point. Sienna spoke next, her words surprising Madison more than her parents' apology. "I knew the money wasn't coming from me," she admitted quietly. "I should have said something when Mom and Dad started crediting me, but I enjoyed feeling important and appreciated. I was selfish and cowardly, and I'm sorry." This confession was perhaps the most meaningful part of the conversation. For years, Madison had wondered if Sienna was actively participating in the deception, or merely allowing it to continue through passive silence. Discovering she had known the truth all along was painful, but her honest admission represented the first step toward rebuilding trust between them. Her father then addressed Madison's specific conditions with a sincerity she had never heard before. "We accept all of your terms," he stated. "We wish to rectify this, not solely for financial necessity, but because we love you and desire you to feel valued within this family." The public acknowledgement occurred at the subsequent family gathering, a 4th of July barbecue smaller than Sienna's birthday party, but including the core relatives who had witnessed Madison's humiliation. Her father stood before dinner and addressed the group directly. "I need to make an announcement and an apology," he began. "3 months ago, I publicly embarrassed Madison by criticizing her birthday gift to Sienna. What I didn't realize then was that Madison had been secretly supporting our family with $5,000 every month for 3 years. I was wrong to credit Sienna for Madison's generosity, and I was wrong to treat Madison with disrespect." Reactions from relatives were mixed. Some appeared genuinely shocked and apologetic, while others seemed uncomfortable witnessing family drama again. But crucially, the truth had been publicly spoken, and Madison's contributions were officially acknowledged. More significantly, the change in day-to-day family dynamics was immediate and apparent. Madison's opinions were suddenly valued in discussions. Her achievements were celebrated with the same enthusiasm as Sienna's. When she mentioned a promotion at work, both parents asked detailed questions and expressed genuine pride. Sienna's transformation was perhaps the most remarkable change. Full-time employment had instilled in her a new perspective on financial responsibility and family sacrifice. She began treating Madison with a respect and appreciation previously absent. She confessed she hadn't realized the difficulty of supporting others, never understanding Madison's sacrifices. She apologized for her delayed maturity. After 2 weeks of demonstrated change in their attitudes and treatment, Madison decided to resume financial support. However, she restructured the arrangement to reflect her new understanding of healthy boundaries and sustainable generosity. Instead of the $5,000 monthly that demanded extreme personal sacrifice, she committed to sending $2,000. This amount provided meaningful support while allowing her to maintain a reasonable standard of living and save for her own future. The reception of this support was dramatically different. Rather than being taken for granted or attributed to another, her contributions were acknowledged and appreciated. Her parents called regularly to express gratitude and provide updates on how the money was utilized. They included her in decisions about major purchases and sought her input on financial planning. Crucially, the support was clearly understood as temporary assistance during their financial recovery, not an indefinite arrangement. Sienna's employment and contribution, combined with her father's gradual return to full-time work, meant Madison's assistance supplemented their efforts rather than replacing them. For the first time in her adult life, Madison felt like a valued and respected family member. The money she sent was appreciated, not expected. Her sacrifices were acknowledged, not invisible. Her presence was welcomed, not merely tolerated. Reaching this point had been painful, but it ultimately fostered the healthy family dynamics she had always hoped for. By advocating for herself and demanding equitable treatment, she had compelled everyone to examine their assumptions and modify their behavior. The healing process following their family reconciliation was gradual but sincere. It took several months for the new dynamics to feel natural rather than forced, and moments arose when old patterns threatened to resurface. Yet, the foundation of mutual respect and acknowledgement they had established proved robust enough for continued growth and improvement. An unexpected benefit was the transformation of Madison's relationship with Sienna. Full-time work and financial contribution had granted her a maturity and perspective she previously lacked. She began seeking Madison's advice on career decisions, financial planning, and even relationship matters, admitting she hadn't realized how much Madison managed independently, previously assuming everything came easily without understanding the underlying work and sacrifice. Their parents also consistently demonstrated their commitment to treating both daughters equally, making conscious efforts to celebrate Madison's achievements, inquire about her life, and involve her in family decisions. The change was not merely symbolic but practical and consistent. When Madison received another work promotion, they hosted a small celebratory dinner, praising her success to relatives with the same enthusiasm they had always reserved for Sienna's accomplishments. When Madison mentioned planning a vacation with James, they encouraged her to prioritize her own happiness rather than feeling obligated to send extra money. Madison's relationship with James also flourished. The stress and secrecy that had strained their connection dissipated, replaced by open communication and shared goals. He had supported her through the difficult process of confronting her family, and witnessing her growth in self-worth and boundary setting deepened his respect and affection for her. 6 months after resuming financial support, her father's health had recovered sufficiently for him to return to full-time construction. Combined with Sienna's steady employment and her mother's tutoring income, they achieved financial stability without relying on Madison's assistance. When she announced she would gradually reduce her monthly contributions as their situation improved, their response was everything she had yearned for during the years of invisible sacrifice. They expressed sincere gratitude for all she had done, acknowledged the personal cost of her generosity, and supported her decision to prioritize her own financial objectives. Her mother remarked that Madison had given them far more than money, teaching them about appreciation, respect, and recognizing those who love them enough to sacrifice for their well-being. The most profound change occurred within Madison herself, her sense of self-worth and family identity. For the first time, she felt like an equally valued daughter, rather than a supporting character in Sienna's narrative. Her contributions were recognized, her opinions respected, and her presence genuinely appreciated. This transformation enabled her to rebuild her financial stability and pursue goals she had deferred during the years of extreme sacrifice. She could move to a better apartment, begin saving for the future, and even plan for the possibility of marriage and starting her own family with James. The essential lesson learned through this arduous but necessary journey was that love should never demand the sacrifice of one's dignity or self-worth. For years, Madison had believed providing financial support without recognition was a noble form of love. But she discovered that healthy relationships require mutual respect and acknowledgement. Asserting oneself is not selfish when requesting basic human dignity. Demanding equal treatment is not unreasonable after being consistently overlooked and undervalued. Sometimes, those who claim to love you need to temporarily lose your support to remember why they should value and appreciate you. The most vital realization was that personal worth is not determined by what one is willing to relinquish for others, but by how one honors and respects oneself while loving them. True family love creates space for every individual to be seen, valued, and appreciated for their unique contributions. Today, Madison's relationship with her family is healthier and stronger than ever before. They have learned to communicate openly about needs and expectations, rather than relying on assumptions. They genuinely celebrate each other's successes and support each other's struggles without creating unfair burdens or invisible sacrifices. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family or unappreciated despite sacrifices, know that changing those dynamics is possible. It demands courage, establishing boundaries, and sometimes difficult conversations, but the outcome is relationships founded on mutual respect, rather than contributions taken for granted. Consider reflecting on similar family dynamics and how they were navigated. Have you ever had to advocate for yourself in ways that felt uncomfortable but necessary? The worth of an individual is not defined by their willingness to be invisible. You deserve to be seen, appreciated, and treated with the same respect you extend to others.